So, you've argued in a number of cases about certain UFOs being not extraterrestrial, but simply the product of advanced classified technology. So what's your attitude on the so-called ours versus theirs issue relating to UFOs?
Mm-hmm. Good question, Richard. A while ago, I wrote a white paper report basically titled Ours or Theirs, and I looked at the pattern that's developing when you look at these cases. For example, Hudson Valley Boomerang 82 to 89. We had
Right.
tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom of the craft. Then you move forward to the 1989-1990 Belgium Triangle case. Same tubes, pipes, and cylinders. Then fast forward to January 5th, 2000, Southern Illinois Triangle case. They also had tubes, pipes, and cylinders. And we had reports from multiple police officers where they were directly below the craft. And what they were doing is they were projecting the star field above the craft on the bottom surface of the vehicle, essentially allowing it to blend in with its background. That's exactly what we've learned about electrochromic panels as well. So when you put this mosaic together, you see these independent indicators that show you or give you a very good heads up of what could potentially be ours or theirs.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think? I mean, I've always had the impression that you've suspected the Hudson Valley cases were primarily ours, and that is human technology. Is that your position on this?
In 95% of the cases, I do believe that it's a man-made technology. Yes, I do. For Hudson Valley Boomerang, yes, I do.
Yeah, and how about the Belgian cases or the Illinois case of 2000?
Same thing for there too as well, because you start looking at these patterns, Richard, and it keeps repeating over and over again. For example, being tested on Thursday nights, that's a real key element, because the March 24th, 1983 sighting over the Taconic State Parkway was on a Thursday night. And we see this over and over and over again. The quote-unquote Aurora was also done on Thursday nights as well. Oh, actually, Thursday mornings, yes.
Interesting. Yep. So in terms of the kind of craft that was seen over the Hudson Valley, I mean, what you're talking about are objects that were, I believe, described as quite large, at least in some cases, not in all of them. Objects that were able to shine bright lights down on the road, on the motorists below them. Objects that I believe were generally described as silent or nearly silent in most of the cases. They weren't super rapid moving, it's true, as far as I recall, very slow moving. But like in one case, you have a couple of cases, you had an object over the nuclear reactor in the area, the Indian Point, described as something like 3 football fields in length. I mean, for me personally, I have a very difficult time seeing that as man-made technology. But I genuinely want to know what you think about that.
All right. Well, let me hit you, Richard, with Monique O'Driscoll's sighting. This is what she had to say, and this is published in the Philadelphia Inquirer, September 28th, 1984. This is Monique O'Driscoll. And then here's what she says. I could see the underbelly part. It's solid. It had metal type worked like cross beams and tubular things hanging down here and there. I was so close I could have thrown a ball and hit it. So she's with her daughter, and they're near Kent, New York, and this boomerang flies directly over their vehicle, and it's a CE2 case because it had electromagnetic disturbances. This thing parks itself over the local frozen pond, does a 180-degree flat turn looking back at her, and then all of a sudden starts shining these multicolored flashing lights below, and she could see the reflection below on the frozen pond.
Yeah.
It's an incredible sighting.
So what are we talking about then? Like, what are these things? Who's making them, in your opinion? What would their mission be as well?
Good question. Well, I've recently come across some new information which I believe solves part of the Hudson Valley Boomerang mystery. 95% of these, in my professional assessment, are man-made craft, and what we're dealing with, Richard, is something called the DRAGON program. This stands for Digital Reconnaissance and Observation Network. This is a DARPA-funded program, also operated by the U.S. Air Force, NASA, and the National Reconnaissance Office. And a lot of information can go into this, but this basically solves almost all of the criteria of the Hudson Valley boomerang, like the transparent panels on the bottom of the vehicle, the crossbeam and girder construction, the low frequency electrical humming noise like a sewing machine or a transformer. It just matches all the criteria.
So it's a reconnaissance type of platform?
It's a reconnaissance type platform, and it had sensors on it. And this is being flown up and down the East Coast tri-state region. And this was one of the craft that was seen by thousands of eyewitnesses. Now, there were some pilots that were trying to mimic the form, fit, and function of this craft, but the people who saw the original craft and saw the airplanes could tell immediately they were talking about two different birds. No doubt about it, because in the original Hudson Valley boomerang sightings, when this thing made a flat turn, all the lights were embedded in concrete as this thing turned as one complete unit. But when you have planes flying in formation, they could never duplicate what this craft could do.
Well, I'm just fascinated by this analysis, but I guess you do have an idea of how this object would be able to perform the maneuvers it does, even in the 1980s. I guess most of us would be surprised to know that we would have had craft at that particular time that would have been able to perform the kinds of maneuvers that you're describing that we all know happened in the Hudson Valley. So what were the principles that this particular platform was using to do what it did, to make these types of non-radius turns and maneuver the way it does?
The way it was explained to me, Richard, what they're using is high energy charged quantized excited particles, superfluid and cooling, exotic, mobile, open and closed system. I couldn't pull any more data out of the contact that I spoke to. He gave me that much and nothing more. So
that's not a lot of technical mumbo jumbo just to say, get out of here, kid. I don't want to talk anymore.
I know. I mean, I tried so hard to pursue this further, try to keep everything in the loop here. But if you look at the characteristics of this craft, and then you compare that to quote unquote Stormville flyers, Richard, that were seen flying around, it's obvious we're talking about two different craft, because if you're flying in formation and you're at level flight, you can sort of keep position with the other planes. Now keep in mind, this is at night, this is treetop level, no sound basically, and they're hovering, right? If you're going to make a left-hand turn, the planes on the left have to slow down, and the planes on the right, by default in mathematics, they have to speed up to keep that radius going. So you can see how it just can't be done. And then
no, they could not do that.
They could not do it. They could not do it. Yeah.
No.
Please hang up and try again.